have a choice.
the Republican
I
candidate
did
for
not
governor.
have sexual relations
And
with
I
that
realize that this is something
Miss
he is
Lewinsky.
We're not going to
inherent.
be able to solve our problems if we get distracted by sideshows and carnival barkers.
One Republican, one Democrat, and you discuss the issues that matter in today's local, state, national, and global politics. Hosted by Steve Hickson with co-hosts John Stanberry and Franklin Chansey. This is Backfire.
Hey, good morning, Cleveland. Welcome to another edition of Backfire. Hey, this morning we've got John Stanberry, and we've got Mr. Art Bass, another attorney here in Cleveland, and we've got Jeff Yarborough in the studio. We're trying to find as many people as we can to take Franklin's place, but it's just hard to do.
Hard to fill those shoes.
It's hard to fill those shoes,
Amen.
right, John?
Yep.
It'll be a lot calmer around here today, I'm afraid, without Franklin. Anyway, guys, excuse me, I got a little frog in my throat. Glad to have you in the studio this morning. Jeff, you can fill us in on what's going on around San Fran, Cleveland here, or the county. But let's talk about, John wanted to talk a little bit about the road department issues with all the illnesses they've had there.
Well, I mean, no, it's not that. I mean, I want to make sure that the men and women that work in that department are safe and protected. And I just found the conduct of the road superintendent to be rather odd, that when someone points out that there's a huge increase in the claims on workers' comp, which means her men and women are getting injured on the job, disproportionate to all the other county departments, her response was to come in and claim that she was being unfairly attacked. And at one point, I'll just tell you the way I took it is she basically threatened the commissioners. You know, when you make a statement that I have X number of employees and they all vote and we'll remember this, that's an implicit threat. And it's one thing to, I guess, threaten when you're saying, oh, we're going to cut your budget, but when you're saying, hey, I'm worried that the people are getting injured here, I don't understand that. Jeff, you add to that or help out?
Well, there's several things here, John. Thanks for the question, and thanks for having me, Steve and John and Art. There's several things. First and foremost, Commissioner Cry, and I don't tend to even pretend to speak for Commissioner Cry. If you know him, he doesn't mince words, and he says what he thinks and thinks what he says. And he made no bones about it that felt this was still an issue. I believe where the miscommunication there came in is Commissioner Cry used the word these stupid accidents, and Miss Knight
worked at the claims.
Right, the claims themselves. And Miss Knight took that as a shot at her employees, that he was calling her employees stupid. County employees do a great job. If you watch it, you'll never find anybody on the commission that fights harder for the county employees than I do. And I tried to make it, you know, the paper didn't pick up exactly what I said, probably. It did say that I fight for the county employees, but what I told Mrs. Knight is if there are political battles and disagreements between elected officials, those of us who answer to the people every 4 years, then that needs to be between us. The employees don't need to be brought into it. And Commissioner Cry cleared it up that he wasn't calling the employees stupid. He was saying the incidents were stupid, and that with proper training, that he felt some of these things, there were a lot of poison ivy claims.
Well, I mean, there were over 30, and when we say claims, this is 30 times that county employees went to the emergency room, which is about $400 a pop.
I'd be $4,000 in emergency room.
Poison ivy.
I'd say it's more like $4,000.
Well, I can tell you, my daughter broke her nose a few months ago. Got hit with a softball on Friday evening. I usually won't go to the emergency room, but I had to take her because it looked like, and if you know anything about a broke nose, it can flatten out sometimes. It can kind of come back into place a little bit. And the first look at it, it was flattened out. It was a Friday evening. I want to make sure that nothing was broken inside, so I took her, and they diagnosed it as a broke nose. And I got before the insurance kicked in. Luckily, it kicked in, but I got an $18,000 bill to diagnose a broke nose. So those can be quite expensive.
And who
especially-
picks up the tab for county employees going to the ER?
we have workers' comp insurance, so the county pays the bill on that.
But if you have too many claims, what happens to the
Workers'
cost
comp,
of that?
you get rated higher, and the workers' comp goes up. And I agree with, and I'm not, I don't pretend to understand the road department and tend to understand how that works. Sandra, and we need to make sure that's what I did, and I know that's what you're doing. There's two separate issues, and many times it's easy to get the troops marching and come in and say, you're offending us, you're doing this. But this is, Sandra the reason Sandra felt that she was being mistreated was, her and the sheriff got into some issues over a couple of things, I believe. That's public knowledge. They had some disagreements. She
That's
feels
over
like,
the county, that's over, picking up the paper.
well,
Grant.
the litter, and here's what I'll tell you on the litter, because they mentioned litter, and her husband Tom, who was former road superintendent, came in and took up for her.
Does Tom still work down there?
I don't know. I heard I'm not sure. I heard he does. I don't know that. I've not been down there to see,
Okay.
but I've heard he does. But
I think he's retired.
and here's what I'll tell you: the county commission pulled the litter grant from the road department and gave it to the sheriff's department. The reason being was it wasn't a jab at Sandra, was it? But Sandra had a crew on the streets, I think 2 or 3 days a week. One crew. The sheriff's department has 2 crews on the street 6 days a week. And if my number's correct, last year the road department picked up 19,000 pounds of litter. Last week alone, the sheriff's department picked up 5,000 pounds of litter.
So you all pulled it because you felt
a
there
better
was
bang for the
better
buck.
job could be
better
done.
bang for not that they weren't doing a good job. They were doing a good job with what they were working with. The sheriff's department had the ability to do a better job with what they had.
Which
to
is
work
your
with.
all's job, is to
Of course.
efficiently manage the budget.
So there was no getting picked on. Sandra wasn't getting picked on. Cooperation goes both ways. You got to be willing to cooperate with us if you want us to cooperate with you as well. And there's been some contention there that we don't get much cooperation back.
Jeff, how many road department people came up to the meeting in the room?
There was probably 20.
And
Yeah,
was that
probably 20.
on county time?
There again, I don't know what their hours are.
I just wonder whether the taxpayer
It was
was
at noon.
paying
It was at noon.
for all of
So
these
I don't know if it was
people
their
to
lunch
be
break.
up there
Yeah.
fussing at you all, when in fact, just so y'all understand what Commissioner Cry was talking about, there are 60 employees at the road department. There were 53 workers' comp cases applied there. So you had, out of 60 workers, you had 53 workers' comp cases. Now, that doesn't mean that 53 different employees, but that's certainly high. That's an 88.3% workers' comp application rate. The average in all of the other departments in the county is 1 out of 5, which is about 20%. And that's an increase. 32 of those cases had property damage. So for me, what I think would have been important for Ms. Knight to do would to be up there going, gosh, I didn't realize what these numbers look like, and I need to do a better job of making sure my employees are safe. And by the way, I get poison ivy. I've never gone to the ER with poison ivy. Now, you can inhale it, and they do some things with choppers and things like that where you might get it in your lungs, and it can be very serious. But from what I understand, one of the risk management people actually recommended in his fixes for this to go to Walmart and buy some Ivarest instead of going to the ER.
Well, if they're handling brush.
Well, let me give you an
Now,
example. Here-
let me finish. They're handling brush. So if this is an ongoing problem, why don't they have some type of gloves? They've got.
Well, I was going to say, not only gloves, Steve. Let's say you're going to, you're going to go out to Eureka Road and you're going to mow on the side of Eureka Road. The week before, why not send someone out there and say, hey, there's poison ivy on Eureka Road. Let's spray that with a herbicide this week, and by next week, when we go out there to cut and grind, it'll be dead. That's the point. That's what should have come out of this, is how do I safeguard my employees from getting these problems?
The 53 worker comp claims, over what period was that?
That's over from July 14th to September 15th.
2 months? Huh?
Yeah.
2 months?
The total for, I can give you all the totals for all the other departments, but it comes out to a 1 in 5 overall for the county. and yet hers is 88.3%.
I believe you'd have to be growing your own poison ivy to find that much poison ivy. I just don't. That's got to be some wrong figures on the amount of time.
No.
2 months.
No, that's the
Is that right, Jeff?
I've not seen that. Like I said, John's
Tom
pretty.
Cry, if you're listening, give us a call.
The one thing I will tell you is, John's pretty. I've always said if you're going to ever debate John Stanbury, make sure you have your facts straight because he normally has his pretty straight. And like I said, what I was telling you a minute ago is, Sandra's an elected official. She deserves the respect of an elected official. She answers to her constituents in 4 years, or every 4 years. The one thing I try to make sure, because Sandra made a statement, she said she was reading from a page, and said that her employees were the front line, and they didn't just ride around all day in cars like the police, like the sheriff's department did. And I corrected her there and said, what you need to understand, that's what happens. Sound bites kill. I'm sure you didn't mean what you said there about the police officers riding around in cars all day. And she came back and restated that. But Tom needed to have she needed to understand too that Tom wasn't calling the employees stupid. The employees are great. We all fight hard for the employees. Sandra and Tom's issue is Sandra and Tom's issue. That's Tom Cry. If she has an issue with the sheriff, that's her and the sheriff's issue. It's not anything to do with employees.
All right. I think we ought to go buy some rubber gloves. I think that would probably help more than anything right now.
Couldn't hurt.
That's right. Art Bass, what would you like to talk about this morning?
Well, actually, the issue that was just being discussed, it's not something that I'm well versed on, and I certainly don't want to debate John on it this morning.
Uh-huh.
But just listening to what's been said,
He wants to know if he can get a lawsuit.
good line. I'll give you that. Good line. But I admit that does sound like a very high percentage of claims, and that does sound excessive. But I'm wondering, though, wouldn't simply the nature of the work that particular department does, wouldn't that lead to higher claims maybe than the other departments?
Well, here's I'll give you a concept of that. I understand that, but wouldn't you think firemen would be at an even riskier job, or maybe EMF? The firemen have 77 employees. They had 7 claims.
Well, they have a lot of safety protocols.
Well,
And
that's what should have been taken, you're right,
Yes.
from the conversation. Instead of, oh, I'm offended, it should have been, gosh, do y'all have any ideas about how we prevent this? That's what you do with workers' comp. You prevent them. I'm sorry, Art.
I know.
That's fine.
I know one thing. When you have a lot of worker comp claim, your insurance is going to go up.
Well, the EMF has 109 employees, and they only had 16 claims out of 109. She had 53 claims out of 60. Well, as I understand it, 1 month there were about 14 for poison ivy, and the next month there were 16 or 17 for poison ivy. Poison ivy is a 3-leaved thing.
What's the season for poison ivy?
Well, it's when it's green, and stuff. And as a matter of fact, you can get poison ivy in the summer or in the winter too.
Well, yes, you can. Let me say something. I am a king at poison ivy.
I know.
I'm telling you, I've had it so bad. I got it the first time bad in the military burning, and I was in the hospital for a week.
Now,
with it.
burning, that's what I was saying. You can do some things with it where you can inhale it, and it can be extremely serious.
Oh, it closed my eyes, it closed my nose, it closed
But
my
again, the point here is not that we're fussing. What we're saying is, let's see if we can put some protocols in place to protect the men and women that work so hard down there.
Well, I think they've probably learned their lesson, so maybe we can move on and get some rubber gloves and buy some soap. Yeah, maybe they'll quit weed eating. Maybe we don't know what's going to happen, but I think surely they've got the message. But Dale Hughes is talking about the hotel motel tax. Wanted to know if the new tax was going to benefit the city any. Evidently, it's not going to benefit the city. It's basically a county item with the hotel motel tax.
Well, I believe the old adage that they tend to use, and I've used many times, kind of goes that way. It goes vice versa this time. The city residents are are part of the county as well, so anything the county does, we hope benefits the city. The city residents. 85% of my district is city. If you know how the taxes go, the city has the ability, in some points to impose their own taxes for hotel motel if they want to.
They don't do that. They just call them fees.
Right. Well, that's okay. I didn't, you know, I wasn't privy to that conversation. I don't know, you know, what Mr. Hughes' intentions was. He's a good friend, and I wouldn't want to assume what his intention is. But what I'd say there is the city is part of the county, and so anytime the county does something, except for, of course, collecting animals, we hope it benefits the city as well.
But now you all reversed yourself on that, haven't you?
On what?
Isn't the county now going to pick up animals in the city?
Well, I mean, not that I've heard. Maybe they have. Maybe I missed that. I'm usually too busy taking a beating on that issue to really be able to hear too much.
I mean,
punch in
we've
the
talked
ears.
about in the past, my opinion at least was you can't exclude the city residents because the city residents are county residents.
agree.
And so for the county to say, we're going to take your city resident taxes as a county resident,
Yeah.
but we're not going to provide this service to you, that's taxation without, you know, any service.
I agree. That's the argument we fought on there on that issue. But yeah, but with Mr. Hughes, as far as Mr. Hughes, well, somebody call her Steve. But as far as Mr.
Muzzle.
Hughes,
Muzzle.
On that, I'm sure, you know, there's been a lot of jabs going back and forth, and I'm sure that's just kind of, you know, there's some guys on the commission that are kind of anti-city, and I believe they understand. I mean,
Well, and now keep in mind, Mr. Hughes runs a couple of hotels in the city, and I do think this tax is tough on them, and it does hurt their competitiveness. Mitch Patel has hotels in several counties, and I asked him a few months ago when he talked about that, and he said absolutely, because now they'll go, oh, it doesn't matter, they look at the room rate. Well, all of these websites where most of these people book their rooms now, they total all these costs up. So these taxes are included in the total price that Expedia or one of those puts out. So if a county or a city increases the local hotel motel tax, it makes them less competitive compared to the neighboring county that has a lower hotel motel tax.
well, originally, you know, if you watch, you know, I'm very hesitant on any tax, and I didn't support this the first time around. I believe I was the only one that voted against it. We had one that passed, and I was the only one that voted against it the first time around. Because my understanding is what I've seen is Bradley County is not a pass-through county or pass-through area. You know, you don't have people just stopping in, you know, to stay here. Most of the hotels that I've talked to are on a contract basis. They do most of their business on contract basis, and on a contract basis, a few dollars does make a difference. We lost some, you know, local industry to Ottawa at the embassy. The embassy has the happy hour and the cooked order omelets, so that could have been something there. I don't know, but we lost it to the embassy. This time around, I was hesitant to vote for this time around, but the reason I did was because the money was going to be allotted for the industrial park, and I do believe that if there's one project in Bradley County that can have a positive ROI, return on investment, and bring in industry and bring in more money, I believe if you put money into this industrial park, it can bring money back out. I believe we'll see a positive return on investment there. So I believe the hotels would benefit. And the one thing I want to make sure we did, and I believe Commissioner Blake did that, was either cap it to where once it's paid off that it goes away, or it comes back to the commission, we have to reallot the money. I don't want everyone a fund to be collecting taxes sitting out there just for us to use how we see fit. I believe we need to I'm a fan of earmarking, so at least if you're doing this, the constituency knows where it's going. And Commissioner Blake was very diligent on trying to make sure that got pushed through.
Good.
Changing the subjects here a little bit. This escaped California inmates that are on the run out there. John, I just saw this morning, got my attention. That the guy that's so dangerous had been deported in 1998.
Yep.
And still here.
Now, one of those people, from what I understand, his family has said that he's not like the others, and they're begging him to turn himself in, and they're claiming that the other two have forced him more or less into this. One, I don't know which one's which. But your point is, had he been deported when he should have been, somebody's life probably could have been spared. Just like the guy that killed Kate Steinley.
Right. That's exactly right. Anyway, I'm going to keep moving here. So,
Well, they're too busy on peaceful protesters in Oregon to worry about that.
I've got to get into this. The hot news,
What's the hot news?
Trump. He's not going to debate.
Well, this morning coming in, they were playing a clip from him 4 years ago when he was actually going to moderate a debate, and only two, I think Santorum and Gingrich, had agreed to be in it, and he called the others cowards for not agreeing to come in his debate that he was going to moderate. But apparently the rules are different now.
I take it, John, you're not a Trump fan.
I've said if he's the eventual nominee, I'll support him. I believe in the system, but I'm running as a delegate for Carly Fiorina. I think that a Cruz Fiorina or a Rubio Fiorina ticket would be excellent. I think she'd be an excellent president. Right now, in the polling data, it doesn't look like she's got a little bit more than Martin O'Malley, but that's not something to be proud of. So, but if he gets it, I'll support him. My problem with him is most of the positions that he takes that I do agree with, he's a late comer to those positions. Now, I had a Democrat in the office the other day that was thrilled with Trump, and at first I thought, oh, well, she's finally seen the light, and she said, no. She said, he's a liberal. Said, I know what he actually is. So that's what worries me.
I'll tell you what I think Trump is right now. He's in the perfect position. You've got him so far to the left and so far to the right, and Trump's right in the middle. There we go.
Well, we were talking about this before the show started. Trump and Sanders on the Democrat side, and there's actually, I think, some commonality.
There's not a lot of difference.
Yeah. Well, what it is, I think, is, and this is true.
I love this.
This is true.
Yeah. The Democrats don't want Sanders. The Republicans don't want Trump. So let's get together. Y'all are really getting together.
But there's a lot of popular support for both those candidates. And you see this, you see this in every national election. There's always this wave of anti-establishment populist sentiment, but it seems to be stronger in this election than usual.
Both parties have failed the general population. I'll be the first to tell you that. The Republicans, I'll give you a good example. I said this last night at the Republican Party meeting. I really liked Bobby Jindal, governor of Louisiana, when he first was in the race. Bobby Jindal ran as a small government Christian conservative. He got elected. He governed as a small government Christian. He cut the size of government in Louisiana. He cut taxes in Louisiana pretty significantly. Guess what happened? His popularity collapsed because people went, this is conservatives. Well, now, we didn't want you to cut that service. Branstad, the governor out in Iowa, I'm sure he runs as a small government Republican, but he told everybody don't vote for Ted Cruz because he's not for the ethanol subsidies. Look, if you believe in a principle, you got to support it no matter what. And I don't make a ton of friends because if you're a Republican and you break the tradition with conservative values, I'll bring it up and point it out. And so we've both failed. We've grown government. Republicans grow government a little slower than Democrats, but they both have grown government. We're going to be at $20 trillion in debt when Obama leaves office. Nobody up there, Republican and Democrat, believes we can sustain that, but no one has the courage to figure out how we stop it.
Well, they're too worried about getting reelected. I mean, that's the whole thing. I said earlier. I said earlier, nobody's sitting in here. John, what you're not. I'm the poor guy in here, but you guys aren't wealthy, but you're comfortable. But none of you could afford to mount a campaign to run for Congress. Because there's X amount of dollars you have to bring with you, and then with that X amount of dollars, I mean, you look at what each contender for president is spending. I mean, we could almost fix many problems if they would just back out of the race, take all the money they're spending on the presidential races, and put it toward causes. I mean, you're talking about multi-million dollars. What
Hundreds
of millions of dollars. Yeah, I mean, and when you add all those together, but in Washington. You go there with a good idea and get there and you get caught up in the establishment and you get caught up in the everyday life and you forget why you got there. Then you get too worried about, you get the guys threatening to cut you and you get too worried about why you've been there.
Well, again, this is another thing about Trump and Sanders. Neither one of them have filters. I mean, they just come out and say what they're thinking. The other candidates, both Democrat and Republican, are more guarded. They're more polished politicians in that they're guarded about what they say.
People are tired of polished politicians.
I think they are. I think that's why you're seeing Trump and Sanders.
But here's the point. I agree with Art, but here's the point, Steve, for you. I like that part about Trump. I like a person who's point blank, and I've always said that. I'd love to be able to run for an office sometime and say, here's what I think. And if you don't like it, vote for the other guy and see how that works. And that's the part about Trump I like, and Sanders is like that too. But the difference is with Sanders, for example, you, Steve, you'll look at what Sanders actually believes in and go, well, gosh, he's for a 90+% tax rate. He's for socialism. And you'll go, oh, I can't do that. Trump gets all the pluses of he's completely open and free with his comments, but nobody's looking at his actual record. And that's what bothers me. It's not the openness. I like that.
I've looked at his record.
Well, what record?
There's a wonderful documentary about his whole life that if you watched it, yeah. I mean, it's really something to watch. If you haven't watched it,
well, I'm in a real bind because if he's the nominee,
and wives.
If he's the nominee, I want to support him.
And it talks about success. And it talks about politics. He was talking about politics when he first got started.
I know, and he was a Democrat.
Well, I'm telling you.
He was a Democrat up till a few years ago.
Well, he saw the light, didn't he? You know what? Everybody was born a Democrat.
Point, he's one person that does have the money to run.
Yeah. No.
You had to go register a Republican, didn't you?
No, I can tell you, my family goes back generations as Republican.
Well, what Art just said too is true. I mean, Trump has got his own money. He can run on his own.
But are y'all really happy with that?
Well,
am I happy with him running on his own money?
No, here's my point.
Yeah, I'm happy
All
with
right,
him.
but here's my point. People go, oh, he's not beholden to anybody.
That's good.
That's not good, Steve. Guess what? The King of England wasn't beholden to anybody, and we had a revolution to get away from someone like that.
Well, who's Obama? Oh.
Well, but my point with Obama is I can look at who he's beholden to, and I know where he's at. Trump, now...
But you can't do anything about it.
But here's my point. It's good and it's bad. On the one hand, you can make the case that isn't it good that he's not beholden to anybody, but on the other hand, that means he can do whatever the hell he wants to. And he doesn't care about anybody.
You know what?
Well, he can only
Would you go to Washington, D.C., would that not be a better
I'm just telling you, there are inherent dangers in that.
But when you go to Washington, D.C. today, if you're a newly elected person, would it be not wonderful not to have any obligations to anyone?
Actually, I disagree, because you know what? I want them to be obligated to the people that elected them.
Well, that's who they are obligated to. Yes, they are.
He's not.
Well, yes, he is. When he gets elected, he's obligated to those people.
Well, here's the thing.
And let me say something. They've given him the trust to do what's right. Now then.
How do you know what he's going to do what's right? Because his positions are all over the board.
But look at our president
this
now.
Year alone,
look at our president now. Do you think anything he did would be an improvement?
No, but I knew where he was
wait a minute.
at.
You say no?
But here's the deal.
Did you say no?
No, what I said was I knew where Obama was, and I'm doing the same thing to Trump that I did to Obama. I looked at Obama's record. He said, oh, I'm for this, and I said, well, he hadn't been for that before. When he was in the state senate in Illinois, he was for this, this, and this. I'm just asking for the same standard to be applied to Trump, and what amazes me is, for example, single-payer health care. That's socialized medicine. That's Bernie Sanders' position. In the summer, in one of the debates, Trump actually said, I'm for single-payer health care. That's worse than Obamacare. He now says, well, I know I'm not for that. Well, Steve, God, that's only 3 months ago.
Well, here's my let me tell you, here's my issue, and here's what happens. I try my hardest, and I've told, because I believe the Democrats were so worried. They're more worried and in tune to what's going on in the Republican debates on the Republican side than they are on the Democrat side. They know they're screwed. They're just hoping that we can tear ourselves apart so bad that
the Democratic debates have been hilarious. I've had to force myself to watch a few minutes.
Here's the problem you have, and this is what
they're not debates.
Well, whatever they're called, it's kind of like.
Hey, can y'all hush for a second? I was talking.
I want to talk about Larry Moe and Curly. Go ahead.
But the scary thing, if you really look at it, is more of a direction of where our country is going. I mentioned earlier, 30% of Democrats polled said a socialist form of government wasn't a bad thing. That breaks the whole foundation of what this country was founded on.
It talks about our educational system.
Yeah, and
that's the problem right now with socialism.
And 10%. If you saw the thing the other day, 10% of college students thought Judge Judy was on the Supreme Court.
Right.
You know, I mean, so
Some huge percentage can't find the United States of America on a world map.
so that's the problem. I mean, so here that's the problem you have, and the problem you have is we get so in tune. You know, I mean, if you look at what Bernie Sanders wants redistribution of wealth. I mean, for me that'd be okay because I'm poor.
Actually,
I'm
it wouldn't,
joking.
because when
I'm
you
joking.
do that,
I'm joking.
all income falls.
Yeah, I'm
There
joking.
is a real irony, I think, in Trump's message, though. So many times he starts out saying, it's not a problem for me. I'm rich, but I'm concerned about the common man who doesn't have what I have. That just seems strange that, you know, he comes from the position of extreme wealth,
Yes.
and then the people that he claims to be concerned about are the people who don't have what he has.
That's right.
and those are the
He
ones
is.
supporting him.
He said
But now, Art, I will
been
point
beat up
out
over
this, though.
years.
He comes from extreme wealth that he built a business and earned. Hillary comes from extreme wealth that she got through crony connections and political connections.
Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson. We'll be right back after this.
You're listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Check into cash. The cash you need today is waiting for you at Check into Cash. It's your money, so come in and get it.
Get a payday advance today for up to $425. At Check into Cash, we make it quick, easy, and confidential.
The cash you need is right here, so stop worrying and stop in to Check into Cash today.
Borrowers often use payday advances over a period of months, which can be expensive. Restrictions apply. See store for details.
Guns, guns, and more guns. That's right, folks. U.S. Money Shops has just received a large shipment of pre-owned Glock 22s, 23s, and the awesome Beretta 8040D Cougar. These guns are law enforcement trade-ins that start at just $379.99 while supplies last. At U.S. Money Shops, there's no shortage of guns, so if you're looking for a great deal on a newer pre-owned gun, then check us out first.
Buy or sell or buy today, the better way at U.S. Money Shops.
Visit usmoneyshops.com for the location nearest you.
Hey Whoopsters, this is Johnny B. Jonesy, and I'm located at the Check into Cash off Treasury Drive. That's next to the new Walmart, right between Cato's and the Tanny Company. Come visit me if you're in a financial pinch. We offer products all the way up to $425 on our payday advances, $2,500 on our title loans, and $4,000 on our line of credit. That offers the lowest rate guarantee when we buy out titles anywhere, anytime. And that is 2314 Treasury Drive, Cleveland, Tennessee. And that number, 423-479-2166. New customers, mention WHOOP FM and get cash back on your first loan. That's Check into Cash. Ka-ching!
If you need a little green, Lending Frog is making deals. He'll lend you cash on any kind of wheels. Borrow just a little, or you can borrow big. Lending Frog is a new financial gig. It's hip to hop into cash. LendingFrog.com is making a splash. Dig it, dig it. Dig it, dig it.
Hello, my name is Andy Figglestaller with Ed Jacobs & Associates. We are an employee benefit and insurance broker in business for the past 20 years. The new healthcare law, also known as Obamacare, has finally arrived. The law is complex and the choices are confusing. You have questions, we have the answers. It is our passion to find cost-effective solutions for every client. The solutions will be different for every person or business. Let our knowledge, experience, and passion go to work for you. Contact us today and let us assist you through this process. Our phone number is 423-473-0202, or you can find us on the web at edjacobs.com.
At Buy Here, Pay Here USA, we pay the most because we buy the best. And we make selling your car to us as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1, bring your car, truck, or SUV to one of our stores. 2, we'll give you a free appraisal with no obligation. 3, sell us your car. It's that easy. At Buy Here, Pay Here USA, we buy the best. We sell the best and we pay the most. Visit us in Cleveland, Dayton, or Chattanooga, or go to buyheresellhere.com. That's buyheresellhere.com. Restrictions apply. See store for details.
Train Endurance Engineers are an elite group of extremely devoted individuals who stop at nothing to push our heating and cooling units to the brink. That way, when they pick up the pieces, they'll know exactly how to make the Train we install in your home even more reliable. Right now, their target is a Train AC unit.
Touch the control. Fire up the pitching machine.
Their methods may seem unconventional,
Okay, cue the jackhammers.
but it's because of their tireless efforts that it's hard to stop a Train.
When you want an unconventionally efficient heating and air unit that keeps your home right in the comfort zone day in and day out, nothing will do but a Train. To get the best Train service, call your local Train comfort specialist. Mechanical Systems, 336-5739. Keeping you comfortable is Mechanical Systems' only business, and they've been providing high-quality service and installations for more than 30 years. Mechanical Systems, 336-5739. That's 336-5739.
It's hard to stop a Train. Really hard.
Yeah, you looking for something sweet? I know you are. Bring your little sweet self to the Village Bake Shop. Around since 1961, there ain't a baked good in the galaxy the Village Bake Shop can't whip up for you. So when you're ready to treat your mouth to a taste you won't soon forget, head over to the Village Bake Shop in the Village Green Town Center. Or give them a call at 476-5179. You dig?
No dealers allowed.
Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933, offering the best with over 70 styles of recliners, sofas, electronic lift chairs, full living room packages. Call Mike now at 961-7239 because Jackson Catnapper now offers sales to the public
Every Saturday. That's right, every Saturday.
from 8 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon. Or call Mike at 961-7239 or go see him
every Saturday
at 1911 King Edward Avenue, just across from the main plant. Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933. 961-7239.
No dealers allowed.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson on Whoop FM. Call 423-614-5553 to join in on the conversation. Now, back to Backfire.
All right, we're back in the studio. Had some interesting conversation while we was on break. Let's talk about Art. I think you said that Hillary might, if she gets elected, appoint Obama to the Supreme Court or something.
Yeah, my understanding is that that just recently she was asked the question, would she appoint Obama to the Supreme Court, and her response was, that's a great idea. She followed up on that by saying that one thing that's going to be important in this next presidential election is that the president will get to appoint possibly as many as 4 Supreme Court justices. And she thought that Obama was eminently qualified, but she also stated that Obama has said publicly that he is not interested in a judicial post after he leaves.
And I would just remind you all, if you want to think about that, 2 to 4 Supreme Court justice appointees to the next presidential candidate. So anybody out there that likes owning their gun, just remember the last decision on the Second Amendment was by 1 vote. It was a 1-vote margin on that.
Well, 2 things.
So you're assuming a Democrat's going to be the next president?
No, I'm telling them not to put a Democrat in there, because if they want to maintain their constitutional rights, they don't need to put a Democrat in who will appoint liberal activist judges to the Supreme Court.
Well, 2 things. First, Art, a minute ago you said, and did you say that President Obama was a constitutional scholar or a constitution killer? I misunderstood.
He's a constitutional scholar.
Oh, okay. I've
he
seen
taught
the constitutional
constitutional
law.
law.
Oh, okay.
But then did he fall and hit his head since then?
But then y'all may have talked, but did y'all see in California, the gun law that was passed in California, that if they deem you, I think it's supposed to went into effect January 1st unless something's changed, if law enforcement or your family deems you a threat, they can get a order and come in and take your guns for up to 3 weeks at a time. We'll just come in and take your legally owned guns in California now, and the only thing you can do is go to court and try to get a blockage of it. But
well, let me give you a little update in the same vein on that. The Obama put his new executive orders through. Well, we just found out that at the FBI, there's a pretty high number of people that get flagged because their name equaled, was the same as someone else's name, and so they get flagged and they're denied a permit in the background check system. Well, the FBI has now they claim this is temporary, but they have moved all employees tasked with reviewing those background checked appeals and reassign them to work on the increased background checks. So now the backlog of denial appeals is 7,100. So right now, if you're denied ability to purchase a gun, you have no recourse. Now, you know how the law works, how the system's supposed to work. You can't go to a judge. You can't do anything, and they're claiming this is temporary. But what happens if they don't ever put anybody back in the denial appeal process?
Did you say that there's some 7,000 nationally?
Right now, there are 7,100 denial appeals on pending.
For a national level, I would think that is a very small amount.
Well, here's the problem,
surprises
though. They also talked about using the terror watch list. If they put the terror watch list in the NCIS background check system, that's 700,000 new names. And they already admit that tons of, like for example, Steve Hayes, who's a regular contributor on Fox News. He's on, I think, National Review's board. His name matches some terrorist, and he's been denied flight, access because of the terror watch list.
And he's been trying to get that fixed for a long time.
But my point is, the employees who were tasked with going through the appeals process are now all gone. There's not a single employee working on an appeal anymore.
Well, I am a gun owner, and I certainly think that it's legitimate for Americans to have guns. I think guns are appropriate for self-defense, defense of home and family. I think they're appropriate for hunting and target shooting. But I am concerned, and I think all Americans are concerned about, the mass shootings that have taken place, particularly those that affect children, where children have been the victims of these shootings. And I do think it's reached the point where something needs to be done.
Well,
and I'm not saying that what needs to be done is take away guns, but there needs to be something done, I think, to make the screening more careful, more thorough.
Well, actually, the NRA for years has tried to put through some legislation. President Bush worked with them back in the early 2000s on mental health screenings, because there is a huge hole in mental health. But that's actually required now, and this is interesting with the Obama administration. The states are required to fix those mental health screening systems and put that information in. The vast majority of the states simply have not done it, and the federal people have not made them do it, and they can make them do it.
But you agree, then, that something needs to be done to make sure that the people who get guns are responsible gun owners.
But I don't disagree. The problem is the Obama administration is not going at it like that. For example, this new thing about changing the definition for who's a gun seller. If you have a widow and her husband dies and she's got 7 guns, and she wants to sell those 7 guns, she's now going to have to register as a federal licensed firearms dealer under this executive order, which, by the way, this order, if a Republican is elected, will be reversed on day one by probably any of the Republican candidates.
Well, two questions I have, though. I mean, am I mistaken, or didn't the government come out and state that no matter what the gun laws you had in place, it wouldn't have stopped the mass shootings involving children?
Well, no, none of the proposed changes would
Okay,
stop.
and secondly, I mean, it seems like, and I understand a mass shooting, and it's always, when you bring in children, it's always good. It's always a good hot topic and a feel good. But what are we doing about all the children killed in drive-by shootings? With the illegal guns. I mean, because the thing is you can put all the proposed and you might get one person who may have done something, but it doesn't seem we're doing anything. I mean, we're to stop. The states that have the strictest gun laws are some of the most violent. And so,
Chicago.
What you're doing,
they're the states that need the strictest gun laws.
But the point is, they're not working.
Yeah,
I agree with you on that.
All of these shootings happen in gun-free zones.
So is the solution to do nothing and continue the status quo? I don't think that's acceptable.
Here's the problem. The gun control people are not sincere. When they say we really just want to reduce violence, they don't. Because there are some some ways you can do this. I've talked about it on the show multiple times. There was a project called Project Exile in Richmond, Virginia. The NRA actually pushed this project. They got the local attorneys, the prosecutors, to forego prosecuting anybody that committed a crime with a gun in state court. And all of those were prosecuted in federal court on federal gun charges. That meant if you were a gangbanger and you committed a crime with a gun, you weren't going to the state prison. You were going to the federal prison. In 1 year...
And the sentencing is...
Right. In 1 year, they saw an 80% decrease in gun crimes in Richmond, Virginia. And they interviewed gang people, and they said, now, they're still committing crimes. And by the way, the murder rate and the violence rate is actually higher in Europe than it is here. They just don't use guns. And so when you hear these gun control people talk about our gun murder rate, they're being very disingenuous. They've had all kinds of mass killings in China, and they've all been swords and knives. The suicide rate in Japan is actually higher than our suicide rate. They just don't do it with a gun. And by the way, you know what the number one preferred weapon of choice for mass murders in America is? It's arson. Not guns, arson. And the highest mass murder in America was a pipe bomb, and it was by a former school board authority in a local school in 1929. That's the largest.
Well, I just saw statistics the other day that if you live in Tennessee, your chances of being killed by a gun are greater than being killed in an auto accident.
Well, but the problem with that is twofold. If you go back 20 years, the total gun violence has dropped significantly. We are actually relatively low now, and even though we've had some high-profile mass shootings, the actual number of mass shootings has gone down. The number of gun crimes has gone down. But our cars have become more and more safer. Our driving speed laws have dropped. So that is not a product of a increasing and out-of-control gun death rate. It's an actually product of an increasing safety record for cars. Now, it's still a problem. But I'll give
That's what I was going to say. Are you saying you're an advocate for just leaving things alone and just continue the status quo?
No, I'm an advocate for doing things that will affect people's the way they act. It's not the inanimate object. It's the person behind the inanimate object.
I agree with that.
What city was it some years back that had a high crime rate, and when they they made it mandatory that each head of household...
It was Forsyth County, Georgia.
Each head of household it would be armed. The crime rate went down.
It didn't go down. It almost went out.
Here's what cracks me up, Art, and this is what's always funny, and not to say that you're one of those, but it's always interesting to me. We always like to use, one child life saved. But the same people who will scream one child life saved is worth it are the same people who don't care about 51 million abortions in America.
Mostly black minority abortions.
Because the same people who are against capital punishment are for abortion. They say, kill the baby, let the criminal live. They're the ones that want to take your guns away under the pretense of they want to take your guns away under the pretense we want to save lives, but they don't show that it's a double standard. So the track record don't add up.
Well, let me say one thing. This is, I think, really, really important. And again, I'm fussing at the gun control people because I think they're very disingenuous. You'll see these reports on the number of children who are killed with guns. And that statistic, and the president has used this statistic, even though he knows it's a bogus statistic, that a gun in the home is 43 times more likely to injure a owner of the home than it is the criminal. Do you know where those statistics come from? They came from a study that a gun control group did. And what they did is they put a pin in your home as a location. They drew a 4-block radius circle around your home. And so any gun who killed someone in that 4-block radius was listed as a gun in the home. Now, guess what that usually entails? That entails gang-ridden neighborhoods. The vast majority of these children, when they say children are being killed by guns, are 15 to 19-year-old gang members. And it's gang shootings within a 4-block radius of your home. So when the president says, a gun in the home is 43 times, he knows that people assume that means a gun actually that I own in the home. That's not where that statistic came from. Incredibly misleading statistic.
A Democratic poll.
It was a gun control poll. Bloomberg claims to be a Republican, but he's gun control.
Let's take a call. Put your headsets on, guys. Go ahead, caller. You're live.
It's not the guns that kill people. It's the people on the guns that kill people.
You're absolutely right.
That's right.
I think what would be a help if they I don't know how they're going to ever stop some of these idiots getting guns in in their hands. Now let's just start doing better background checks. I don't know. But I just thought I'd give that comment to you guys.
Well, let me ask you something. Yeah. Would you be in favor of anyone who uses a gun in a crime having an automatic 10-year federal prison sentence added to the whatever they've done?
Actually, they have that if they just prosecute him federally.
Sure.
That's what I said.
Right. Thank you, Colin.
That's what Project Exile was.
We got to be careful there, because in today's society, in the way today's judicial system is, if you protect your home and shoot an intruder, you may end up being the person who's committed a crime using a gun.
Well, that gets into the stand your ground laws.
Yeah. So,
well, tell me, if somebody breaks into my house and I shoot them, what have I got to worry about?
Not much in Tennessee.
All right.
And here's my problem with this whole thing. I go back to a more fundamental level. I'm tired of people not being held responsible for their actions, and that's really a lot of our problems in this culture boil down to that on all kinds of issues. People want to do what they want to do, and then they don't want to suffer any of the negative consequences. My opinion on you breaking into a house is, the moment you choose to kick that door in, you rolled the dice. When you kick that door in, the homeowner may be groveling on the floor begging for their life, or they might have a 50 caliber Barrett rifle in there and blow a hole the size of a football through you. As far as I'm concerned, that was your responsibility. The minute you step in my door, I don't care what happens to you.
I feel the same way. Let's take another call.
Hi, guys. This is Emily.
Emily?
Hey, Emily.
Emily.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I just have a quick point, and I'll hang up. But the study that you just talked about, which was from the Violence Policy Organization that just came out, I'm really irritated at the media for reporting that study, because, first of all, they take numbers from two different sources, from the CDC and the state of Tennessee, that they pick and choose the numbers that they wanted to use, and the numbers do not match. So they got their numbers from two different sources. Second of all, if you break down, and you can go to the state's website, and you can break down deaths with firearms. And when you look at the percentages, 66% of those people who died because of a firearm-related incident were because of suicide. Now, when you look at a study from the Violence Policy Group, you think that what they're reporting is violent crime, not suicide. So 66% of those deaths were suicide, people who chose to use a firearm to kill themselves. It was not homicide. And I think that's an important point, because they're using the statistics to paint a different picture when that's really not the case.
Yeah, but Emily, if they didn't have a gun, they couldn't kill themselves.
Oh, they'd kill themselves.
And I understand what you're saying, but the point of the article was to say, my goodness, we have this
gun problem
in Tennessee with firearms, and all of these people are going out and committing crimes and homicides on other individuals, so much so that it's more dangerous for you to walk the streets in Tennessee than to drive a vehicle. And that's not the truth.
Except I'm not being flippant, but I would think someone who kills themselves with a gun, that would be, in my mind, a violent crime.
Yeah, but Art, here's the point. If you're an organization
what I'm saying is, those people probably should never have had guns, or a great many of them, in the first place.
Right, but here's the...
I agree with you on that.
Then they shouldn't have knives, or they shouldn't have pills, or they shouldn't have a bathtub.
There are a lot more people who will kill themselves with a gun that are not going to stab themselves and commit suicide.
No, but they'll take pills, they'll jump off of a building.
Go ahead, Emily, respond.
No, this is the thing, though. I think that we all agree, and John said this just a few moments ago, that the mental health issue is an issue that we need to tackle. But it seems that we are putting information out there, and we're trying to make it seem as if it is this horrible problem that we have here, especially in the state of Tennessee, where all of these numbers of permit holders have gone up across the state. And all of a sudden, we are in danger of walking the streets more so than driving a car. And the purpose of that study was to make people think that those were homicides. And that's not the case. And while I feel bad for those and their family that committed suicide and think that they need help, at the same time, I don't know. It's very difficult for government to start regulating and putting laws in place to keep people from committing suicide. And there was, I think that if I remember correctly off the top of my head, I think that of those that committed suicide in Tennessee, it was 50-something% used a gun. It was 50-something% and the high 50%. So there are still a lot of other people. If they're wanting to commit suicide and you take their gun away, they're going to find another method to commit suicide.
Emily, wouldn't you venture to say, that prescription narcotics, methadone clinics, and other pain management organizations that are popping up that the liberals tend to get behind are just as dangerous, if not more dangerous, than guns?
Well, if you read the newspapers across the state, that is a huge issue that they're tackling right now, or trying to tackle in Nashville. There are a lot of things going on there in Nashville to try to do something about the epidemic of prescription drug abuse here in the state, and you're exactly right. But to say that, I guess the thing that bothered me so much about this study is it was from a group called the Violence Policy Group. And if you go and you look at their website, I took 5 minutes to do so, and you look at their website, there, right on the front page, it says, taking on the NRA, power, money, and fear. So that is what the mission of the group that put out this study, that handpicked and cherry-picked these numbers and twisted them to make it look like it's something that it was not. And all of these major news outlets have taken the study and just ran with it without even bothering to do a little bit of research. Again, I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I can take 10 or 15 minutes to look up on the state of Tennessee's website about deaths that were reported in the state of Tennessee.
Emily, I understand you're being critical of the study and how it was done, and also how the media used it. But I remember last year just listening to the news and looking at the newspaper, and it seemed like every day in Chattanooga, there was a period of time for months when almost every day in Chattanooga there was someone who was being killed in a drive-by shooting or something like that. There was a lot of talk about there was a problem with gang violence in Chattanooga. But it was just every day.
Yeah, but Art, how many of those guns were obtained legally?
That's what I was about to say. What gun law could you put on the books?
None of those guns are obtained.
Okay, but
93% of all guns used in the commission of crime are obtained illegally.
All I'm saying is there is a problem, though. And I think you conceded that there is a problem.
I agree, but here's our...
And I'm not saying take guns. Right. I said a while ago...
Oh, I agree. You're being very reasonable, but here's the problem, Art. What Emily is really getting at is this group is not really interested in the tragedy of these deaths. They have a political motive. They don't like guns. They don't think we ought to have the number of guns we have, and they are willing to use any numbers, any situation to manipulate into their political objective. These same people, the Democrat Party, who is much more the gun control party, they're also pushing for death with dignity, which is the new nice way of saying assisted suicide. So it's amazing to me that on the one hand we're going to say, oh, we need to get rid of guns because all these people commit suicide with guns. But then again, if you really want to kill yourself, as long as you pay the doctor, we're okay for it.
I just want to see something done about the problem. I don't care if it's done by the Democrats or the Republicans,
by the way,
or if it's bipartisan.
In Tennessee, if you pull Memphis out of the crime statistics, you see a huge change in the picture you get of Tennessee and the violent crime.
Wait a minute, you pull Chattanooga out, too.
Emily.
But again, John, you acknowledged earlier that there is a problem.
Emily, here's a fun fact. I think if you look at 93, we say 93% are committed with illegal guns.
Illegal guns.
That means what we're doing, if only 7% is committed with legal guns, by trying to target the 93% of illegal, we're damaging and punishing the 93% of legal people who aren't committing.
Well, but Jeff, we do have a precedent for that. 88% of the people had health care before Obamacare, and we targeted the entire 1/6 of the economy for 13 or 12% of the population.
And the price went up instead of down.
Well, if you remember when Insure Tennessee people came to county commission and they're going to target me next election because they are mad at me for not supporting Insure Tennessee, they said that it would help I think it was 4,000 people in Bradley County obtain health insurance when we're a population of 100,000. They were wanting us to go ahead and support this because it'd help 4,000 in Bradley County.
4%.
Emily, you still there?
Enjoy your show, and just wanted to bring that up because that was some information that I just took the time to look at myself. And it really bothers me that these media outlets and these journalists, so-called journalists, did not take the time.
Well, they're pro-gun control.
And the study and what they were actually reporting, and at least give both sides. That's all. That was the point I wanted to make. But love your show. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Emily.
Thanks, Emily.
For the call. Our time's up, but I've got to ask this question. This is an Art Bass question.
Oh, no.
Okay. Do you think prayer is important at a high school sporting event?
I think prayer is always important.
I know you do.
And I think people can pray anywhere, anytime.
That's right.
And I think that's constitutionally guaranteed, and I think that's an appropriate thing for anyone.
Well, this was at a Florida Cambridge Christian school.
Well, no, it was the state football championship.
All right, go ahead and talk about it, John.
I'm not necessarily in approval of public prayer led by a minister.
Right, but here's the great part about this. All right, I understand.
I got to ask you why, but
that's
go
the
ahead.
Democrat position that it's a public event, but this was the state football championship. One of the teams in the championship was Cambridge Christian School. The other team in the championship was University Christian School. So 2 Christian schools in the state football championship asked if they could have a prayer, and the Florida High School Athletic Association said no, that it was against the law because they would be preying on government property. So both schools, both organizations are private Christian schools, and they were told they couldn't pray.
Well, it's kind of like you were saying about some of the gun violence. You can always pick out an isolated event that where you reach a result that sounds strange or unusual or inappropriate. But I think the overall policy, and you were talking earlier about how, if you have an overall policy, you need to stick to that in all situations.
But this is a new policy. We didn't used to do this. We used to pray.
I understand, and you can still pray.
There could have been a Muslim there.
Hey, it might have been offended. By the way, the president of Iran
an atheist.
went to Europe now that we've opened up billions of dollars of trade for them. And the Italian prime minister met him in one of their museums and had boxes put up over any of the nude statues so as not to offend the president of Iran. So hundreds of years old of what we considered valued art and cultural history was covered up so we don't offend the stuck in the 7th century murdering massacres from Iran.
Diplomacy has strange ways.
Obama diplomacy.
You know what those 2 coaches from those Christian schools should have done is just gone ahead and had the prayers not asked.
That's right. Forgiveness, not permission.
Folks, it's been real. We'll see you next week. Another edition. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson, John Stanberry, and Franklin Chan.